We are going to be discussing the rhetorical analysis student essay of the Clare Boothe Luce's speech to the Women's National Press Club. Let's get started with the introduction. The speech given by Clare Boothe Luce to the Women's National Press Club was controversial and even condemning of her audience. However, Luce pulls it off by gently preparing the audience for the criticism. She employs the fact that they invited her there to speak, a strong consideration for their feelings, praises of the profession, and a clear plea for open-mindedness. The student shows an understanding of who is the writer, audience, and purpose. Obviously, the writer being Luce, and the audience is the Women's National Press Club, and the purpose is she is there to be critical of them. The student also writes a defensible thesis that discusses rhetorical strategies. Now let's move on to the first body paragraph. She opens the speech with a paradox about being happy and challenged. First saying she is flattered and honored, then she flips her original statement saying she is less happy than you may think. Right off the bat, Luce gives her audience signs that her speech is not going to be 100% positive, but then she makes sure to remind them that they have asked for her opinion on what is wrong with the American press. Within her first paragraph, Luce makes her intentions clear, before even stating her argument, and she confirms that they are aware that they asked for the criticism. The student claim is clear, that Luce uses a paradox and explains it with the words happy and challenged, using evidence immediately afterwards to support this idea. The student's commentary also discusses the effect of this paradox on audience, which is that she is there to be critical of them as journalists. Let's move on to the second body paragraph. In the second paragraph, Luce uses self-deprecation to show her audience the difficult situation she is in. She acknowledges her own position, which exposes the follies and sins of her listeners. Luce gives them a slight idea of the criticism that is to come by comparing herself to an arbitrary banquet speaker who shares the same difficult task. Next, Luce employs some humor by saying that she is not the best candidate for the delicate art of giving an audience hell, but rather perhaps public figures like Billy Graham's and Bishop Sheen's would succeed at it. Her lighthearted and self-deprecating approach makes the audience more likely to accept their claims or at least hear her out. So again, the student's second claim asserts that Luce uses self-deprecation to gain her audience sympathy, then supports this with evidence using the words follies and sins. The student then later comments on Luce's use of humor to lighten up the mood, so her audience is more willing to listen to her argument. Now let's look at the third body paragraph. As Luce continues her speech, she again reminds them of her invitation and then prepares them for harsh words by complimenting their careers and their standards of writing. She warns them that it is not to be sugarcoated because they are an audience of journalists, and they would all see through any attempt to do so. Her praise of their intelligence automatically pleases the audience and makes them more willing to listen to the argument. The student uses flattery for this claim and brilliantly interweaves evidence with analysis. Again, mentions audience willingness to listen because of Luce's ability to praise her audience. Last but not least, let's look at the conclusion. Through the final selections of her introduction, Luce carefully plants the definition of journalism, the pursuit of and the effort to state the truth. While this statement pertains to her overall argument, the journalists do not always state the truth. She does not outright accuse them of this. Instead, she merely introduces a commonly shared opinion on journalism. By waiting to argue it further, Luce gets her audience on board that truthfulness and honesty are their primary concerns. If the audience agrees with this statement, then she will have already won half the battle showing them journalists' faults. The student ends with a final claim that Luce uses the definition of journalism to gain the audience attention and acceptance of her criticism, with embedded evidence into commentary. The final sentence ties back to the claim, thesis, and purpose, which is Luce about to unleash some heavy criticism to this group of journalists.